Meme coins have been pumping lately, with Pepe taking out the title, doing thousands of % return, everyone talking about them. But is now the time to be getting in, or are we starting to see complacency with trading? These are some of the massive mistakes that most retail investors made during the last bull market, which made them lose 90% of their profits. Let's take a look at that in today's video, where we are in the altcoin cycle with an update of the Wyckoff chart and also the Wall Street cheat sheet, where you can make up your own mind with these altcoins. We have a lot of altcoins to get through. And as I said, an update of our total cryptocurrency market caps and our total altcoin market caps. Where are we now in this cycle? Today's video is jam-packed with altcoin season information, so make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This is the stuff you need to come back to if you're going to be making profits in the market long term. We also have a video sponsor today, Sinverse. More on them later. They tie in very nicely with these cycles, in particular the Wall Street cheat sheet. Let's begin with the Wall Street cheat sheet. This is something that we've been following for months, and I've been posting about it on Twitter, so you can follow me over there so you can get more timely updates. However, we're just looking here at the Bitcoin chart on the Wall Street cheat sheet, looking at this moving into disbelief. Now, I did this on the 30th of March, but of course talked about it much earlier than that. Many are still believing that we're in this sort of anger stage where we're bouncing out of this low before we come into a bigger collapse, while others, like myself, are looking at this as being the disbelief because we have broken out of this zone. So it looks pretty clear at this stage. We still need a little more confirmation, but nonetheless, it's important to keep an eye on where Bitcoin is in its Wall Street cheat sheet, or essentially its market sentiment, because this is going to affect what your belief is of the overall market. So we need to have a bias here in terms of our own analysis and what we think is going to happen next. And next is the Wyckoff schematic for BTC. Similar to the Wall Street cheat sheet, we have an idea of where we think we are in that pattern, and putting all of the macro analysis together gives us an idea of what we believe might happen next. So basically the probability of what is happening next. Just like with the Wall Street cheat sheet, I put this out in March, around the time that we're at the banking crisis low, or just bouncing out of it. And remember, the fear at that time was extreme. Most people believed that we were going back down at that time. However, now we're starting to get a few more bulls come into the market compared to what we had back then, and compared to what we had back in January when we had that first breakout. They were the levels that we really thought that this could be that break after we saw that big FTX collapse. But does this mean that cryptos and altcoins have further to fall or further to rise? That's why we're covering this first up. So the Wyckoff schematic for Bitcoin looks like we're in phase E. It looks like we're breaking out. But this is a big contrast to what's currently happening with altcoins. Before we get to that, where BTC is right now and why we think that is, well, we've broken out of the 25K region. Like I've mentioned many times before, probably anything under 25K is almost a distant memory, but definitely under 22K. Now, I say that with 100% conviction. That's my own bias, but I can appreciate not everyone has that same sort of conviction when it comes to the market. Moving forward from this point, it looks like we might have one last little push to the upside, maybe the mid 30s, around 32 to 35, maybe slightly higher. Nonetheless, it really does, in my analysis, in my humble opinion, look like Bitcoin has moved out of this accumulation zone, especially on some of the biggest, craziest bearish news that we have seen in a very long time. The FTX collapse, which was 6 months ago to the day, that collapse brought us to the cycle low. Then we had the banking crisis low, which has now projected us from a higher low into where we currently sit. So we see Bitcoin holding some strength here, and this is what is putting a lot of pressure on altcoins, in particular their BTC values. And this is all going to be part of the next cycle. So if we get ourselves caught in altcoins now while Bitcoin has a lot of strength, it can lead to further losses in that altcoin portfolio, even though you can see Bitcoin going up and maybe you see the US dollar value of those altcoins going up. What does that look like and how long does that last? Taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, it looks like we're on the verge of a breakout at the moment. We're getting there. We're not confirmed yet. You can see just from the line here that Bitcoin's dominance hasn't broken out of these highs just yet, but it's been trying. It's been trying for a very long time, since 2021, when we first hit around that 48% level, and again in July, and again in June of 2022, and even recently we just got a slight rejection here before we bounced up very quickly again, and we're testing around that 48, 49%. The cycle low, so the dollar value low, was back here in the end of 2022. And you can see that Bitcoin goes on this dominance run first up as everyone starts to leave their altcoins at the bottom of the market, but that then flushes out the BTC value of those altcoins because they're higher risk. People are leaving the highest risk things you can do in crypto, throwing it back into Bitcoin, with some exceptions, of course, like Pepe and other memes that have been going on. You've got the odd little flush out here and there. But eventually those profits leave those altcoins and start to flow back into stablecoins, Bitcoin, maybe ETH, maybe even go back into fiat so they can use the profits to go and buy stuff. People typically don't hold these things for that long, especially during accumulation periods, transitional periods from a bear to a bull. And maybe if you still believe it's a full-on bear market, then we can call it a bear too. But what happens next? Well, probably a breakout. Just looking at probabilities here, especially if it gets above the tops, around that 48.5 to 49%. The bears, or in this case, the altcoins that are going to make it, you need to see Bitcoin dominance come back down and break these lows here at 46.8. Now, this is the swing indicator that we use to give us those tops and bottoms. The more interesting and important tops and bottoms, not just any old tops and bottoms, because there are a lot of those. There's a lot of support and resistance lines, but the swing indicator here really shows this significant tops and bottoms. That link is in the top of the video description. You can find that there, and you've got plenty of videos to go through to help you use that swing indicator for trading and just to know how to use it for your own investing and trading. Okay, so looking at the Bitcoin dominance again, how long does this last? Well, going back to the previous cycle, we definitely need to have a nice little push out to the upside. At least that's what's happened in the past. So Bitcoin has broken out in the past, come back and tested some of these levels. So you can even draw another breakout level above that. And then it went on its run. Using our tool here, just to give us a bit of an idea in terms of the time frame, from the top breakout just to the top itself, 16 bars. So that's in a weekly chart here. So it's about 4 months from that top to top. But Bitcoin did hang around at these high levels for a very long period of time, basically 85 bars, so coming up to 2 years at those high levels. But there were some good trading opportunities within that redistribution phase of BTC. Bitcoin is essentially redistributing here into altcoins. So we're nearly at the end of the charge of Bitcoin taking strength out of the market and then flowing back into altcoins. So we're getting there, but it seems like we still have several more weeks or months to go before Bitcoin starts to distribute back to altcoins, maybe have a few altcoin seasons in specific niches, just like we did in 2020. We had the DeFi summer. So basically it was all DeFi cryptos that were going nuts. And then Bitcoin taking the gains back as it starts really that next sort of retail bull market stage. At the moment, we're in that first stage where it might be institutions, it might be smarter money, it might be things like that that are finding that this is the lower level. It has higher reward. There is probably lower risk because there's less for Bitcoin to come down, but retailers see it as higher risk because the price is lower. They tend to do the opposite. Nonetheless, we're looking at here in terms of the timing and what happens next for BTC. From this point, this is probably coming towards the end of the move for the dominance. Could take several months, as we said. We have to find some strength here for BTC dominance and then go on that redistribution phase. I would say in terms of a price range here, we're possibly going to come up and test somewhere in the mid 50% levels using the market cap Bitcoin dominance on TradingView. So make sure we keep an eye on these particular levels for when that dominance finishes and the redistribution begins. Now we still have all of the altcoins to get through and what we can look for so that we can be making those profits from the market and looking out for cryptos which are going to lose us a lot of money. It's not just about making all the money, but it's about keeping the profits. That is a huge thing that I've learned over now 2 cycles, coming into my 3rd cycle in crypto, but of course over the last 17 years of investing. Making money is easy, but it's even harder to keep the money. So it might seem like making the money is hard, but actually keeping the money is the hard game when it comes to investing. So the total cryptocurrency market cap is holding up relatively well, but of course this includes BTC. So this is obviously in the starting phases of the bull market. As we can tell from our Wyckoff schematic, you can see we're breaking out of the top zone here, which puts us into phase E. So the total cryptocurrency market cap looks like it has that strength because Bitcoin obviously has that strength. These are all the levels that we had on the chart a long time ago. So if you're not following already, make sure you do that. Hit that like, subscribe, and follow. But this was that final capitulation zone that we were looking at for all the cryptocurrencies, and that just touched into the zone and has now bounced away, of course, mostly thanks to Bitcoin. So I don't think these things are going to happen now, and we're probably going to just delete these off the chart so that we don't have to have too many lines on here moving forward. So hopefully you're remembering that for the next video. The real strength comes above that $1.5 trillion here for the total market cap. Now we get on to the fun stuff, the altcoins. So we had that background to give us an idea of what's going on with Bitcoin, why Bitcoin has the strength, why we could see further downside for altcoins against their Bitcoin value, why this is important because of our risk in our portfolios and trying to keep those profits. This is all the important stuff here. The unsexy stuff. Everyone's looking for that next 100x, but they might get the pump, then they get dumped on. That's the story in cryptocurrency time and time again. So let's not get dumped on here. Let's take a look at crypto, total market cap, excluding Bitcoin and excluding ETH, because it gives us an idea of what's going on in altcoins. This is what we've been looking at for altcoins using that Wyckoff schematic. Now I've got a question mark because, like you can see, the stark difference here with altcoins. We have not broken above the trading zone, nor the second trading zone here, which would put us into that phase D. So this could be another down leg, could be. But while we remain in this channel and trading above the midpoint, you can see the mid-level right here at around 350 billion, there is the possibility that we start to move even higher. So altcoin USD values can go up, which gives it and makes it a good trade for anyone that's trying to trade cryptocurrencies. But for the BTC value, because you can see it lagging here, it hasn't broken out of the August top like Bitcoin has. There's the August top, and you can see Bitcoin has broken out. Because altcoins are lagging, that means they might not be putting on as big of gains that Bitcoin is during a longer period of time. Short term, different thing. Think of Pepe, that has gone absolutely ballistic. So keep this in mind when it comes to our Wyckoff schematic. We're not there yet at phase D, breaking out with that sign of strength, putting in that last point of supply. So that's the backup and the last point of supply where it has to jump the creek to then get into phase E. So we're not there just yet. So it's still quite risky. Get in, get out, make your money, and go and buy your Lambos, whatever it is that you do with those profits. With that in mind, let's start looking at altcoins. Now I'm going to start with Ethereum, which I don't really consider an altcoin anymore. Nonetheless, it's not Bitcoin. So let's have a look. This is our Wall Street cheat sheet. You can see that the main things we're looking at are euphoria, which is the peak, complacency, the dump, and then are we in the longer drawn out phase, or are we breaking out into the disbelief? So are we still in the bear market, or are we breaking out into the early stages of a bull market? So this is probably the biggest question that most people have on their minds when it comes to their altcoins, if they are trading longer term swings, months, maybe even years, which is what happens in cryptocurrency. It takes years to get the accumulation and then the breakout. 2019 to 2022, that is years. It's not short-term stuff like Pepe. Okay, we'll get into those in a minute. But looking at the Wall Street cheat sheet, you can see for ETH, there is the euphoria. We also had another euphoria, but essentially using the last one here in late 2021, the dump happens and then complacency kicks in. I'm not perfect. Definitely got caught in complacency for Ethereum, but in terms of altcoins, I know to scrap those things altogether. And I think over the next cycle, probably have to get rid of the ETH and the Bitcoin as well when things dump. I think it's just important to take a lot of profits during this next bull run. Okay, so complacency definitely kicked in for ETH, but now the question is, are we in this stage for ETH and about to dump even further, or are we starting to break out? So I would be able to answer that question once ETH is able to get above $2,000 and hold above $2,000. There was some support back here at 1,800 to 2K. There was also some support here around 2,200. Then there was a rejection here at about 1,900 to 2,000. So it's a really key area for ETH to get back above so that we can determine whether we are in that disbelief, so the start of that early stage bull market, or if we're just getting rejected again to go further into depression. So that's a big one for ETH, using the Wall Street cheat sheet, which will obviously also help us with our Wyckoff schematic. So the big one is ETH BTC. We're all here to make more money, maybe even more Bitcoin. Where are we now for ETH BTC? Well, we've been rejected a lot at the 50% level. So this is our Gann retracement 50% level. This is significant high, cycle low. The exact midpoint gives us a very good idea whether the market is strong, so above this level, or weak, below the level. This is how the tool is used, and we use it to trade like that. So in terms of ETH, it's at that make or break, and it's starting to drift off. However, it's a little stronger than most other cryptos. We don't want to see it break back down underneath these levels around 4% or 4 million Satoshis. Nonetheless, it's still holding up okay for now. Currently, the low is in June 2022. So it is holding up a lot stronger than other altcoins, which are putting in new lows against Bitcoin, which are very weak cryptos for the next cycle. They may make gains against the USD value, which are great for trading, but they may not be making gains, very big gains against their BTC values, unlike new cryptos, which will eventually come out. Solana was one of those new cryptos from the previous cycle, and I posted about this on my Twitter throughout the bull market of 2021 and just breaking into that bear market of 2022. I didn't understand at the time that people didn't want to make profits from the market. When I posted about selling, they said I was an idiot. When I posted about selling all of it, they said I was an idiot. But now you can see who the real idiots are. And if you are posting publicly with a bit of an audience, like what I've got, which I'm very thankful for, then you have to realize that the majority at those peak times are not going to like it, because they're basically married to their altcoins and they buy in way too late. They get absolutely destroyed. Those posts are all up on my Twitter if you want to go and have a look at them. But essentially, I was buying through this dip here and then selling as we started to get into those tops. I wasn't trying to sell the exact top. You can see I sold about 160 and then again on the breakdown at 130. Missed out on the 260, but a profit is a profit and a 5, 6, 7x is a 5, 6, 7x. To the downside, you start to see that breakdown and then we get into this collapse. So the main thing we want to have a look at here is how is this comparable to what's going on with the Wall Street cheat sheet and the Wyckoff schematic. Is this going to make it or is it going to fail? While the altcoin remains under significant levels, like you can see here, it has a very high chance of failing. It's still underneath the 50% level of 23 bucks. So you need to keep an eye on any of these other significant levels. Whether it's 15 bucks, 16 bucks, you can see those significant lows that came in. If it starts to break down, it's probably not going to make it. That's one. Or it's not going to have great gains like other altcoins that might be new to the next cycle. These are old altcoins now. An old altcoin is something that's already had its hopes and its dreams bubbled into the price and then burst out of the price. That is an old altcoin. You can see it in the BTC chart nice and clear. So here's the Sol BTC chart, and you can start to really see how the market sentiment plays out time and time again, especially against the BTC value, which is what you need to keep track of if you're holding something longer term. Short-term trades going to be much easier, but longer term stuff, probably into the months, then you need to keep track of this. Sol has gone through its complacency. That was that peak there in the price, but against BTC, it was a lower top, very, very weak. Then you can see anxiety and denial. I like to think denial comes before anxiety. You're complacent, which is basically denial. Then you deny it again. And then as the market dumps for that third time, 1, 2, 3, you get anxious, thinking that could this be the bottom or am I going to see further losses? That's usually what happens out there in retail. I always see it more of a denial thing, a denial, and then you get anxious. So we start to get that dump from the anxiety into the panic and the capitulation, and then everyone gets angry at the bottom. So is this it? Is this the end, or do we go further down? Like I said earlier, we need to wait for a breakout of these levels here against their BTC value and then consolidation before it can try and climb higher. Overall, from giving you my view, my opinion of what I think will happen next during this next bull market, I don't think something like Sol or any of those other old cryptocurrencies are going to make it back to their previous tops against their BTC value, but against their USD value, they might have a good chance of coming back and taking out their previous all-time highs. Possibly. I don't know. But for the BTC value, I would almost bet, well, I am betting that 99.99% of them are not going to come back to their previous old all-time high in the next cycle, because we have plenty to look at. As an example, Ethereum never made it back, but had a very good run against this US dollar value, so something that you can really trade. Heaps of examples to get through, but first, the video sponsor, which is Synverse. Now, this is not a buy recommendation whatsoever. However, it is a video sponsor and a fantastic look at how all of this plays into each of the cycles. So stick with me here, use your heads about this, and have a look at how this happens in real time. So this is Sin, S-I-N, that's the ticker symbol, world's first mafia-themed metaverse, sold out its land sale in less than an hour, so less Sin in circulation, secured major investment, preparing for business license, game is playable, currently in pre-alpha. Does that help the price of Sin right now? Well, anyone can see that on a chart. Hopefully they can for themselves and see that this thing has been dumping. And what does that look like when it comes to the Wall Street cheat sheet? Complacency, further downside, potentially denial, potentially panic, and then we start to move into this bottom area here. Now, the thing that's going to change overall is, will this continue further down before it starts to come back up? Or are we going to level out at these higher prices? So the two key areas, we're looking at this in terms of TA, solely TA, not all the other fundamentals that are going on in terms of the project, because we're interested in making money from the project, whether it's trading long or short. So maybe even shorting the market on something like Bitget, where you can find it here. You can see the low is in here at around 0.5 cents, and then the slightly higher low came in again at a 5.7. So these are going to be the key levels to keep an eye on. Does it drop back into this zone, which would then mean it's probably going to head lower, or does it hold up above these zones? That's the thing to have a look at here, especially if you take into consideration the market sentiment and your TA after the market has gone for a massive pump on euphoria, complacency, and then the breakdown through denial, anxiety, and into panic and capitulation. If you want to be that diamond hands and make it long-term in trading, then these are unfortunately the hard pills to swallow. The feedback I often get about these sorts of videos, if anyone actually watches it this far, is I wish I knew this before buying altcoins. Let me know in the comment section down below if this is you, because unfortunately most people are here just to pump and dump things and try to make any sort of gains without doing any real work or planning. So if this is you, I wish I knew this before buying altcoins. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments down below. So these are 5 points I have here. The Bitcoin dominance is crashing. So this will always crash old altcoins. It happens cycle after cycle after cycle, because the mindset is people realize that altcoins are basically not going to make it, and they get out of the altcoins into something more stable like Bitcoin, like stable coins, and probably even fiat. Number 2, Wall Street cheat sheet. There is identical patterns to altcoins crashing time and time again. I've shown you a few examples. We're going to have a look at a few more as well, so that you can burn this into your mind come the next altcoin cycle. And obviously I've got a fresh real-time example for that as well. Number 3, complacency comes in all different shapes and sizes. So looking at the chart here of AVAX, you can see complacency looks pretty similar to what's here on the chart, but the rest of it comes in all different shapes and sizes. That's something that we have to really take into consideration when it comes to our trading, because too many times we try to make this fit exactly like this, but this is trading and investing. Nothing is exact. You just have to know the overall movement, the overall fractal, and start to place the points on the chart so you can get an idea of it. So there are no exact fractals that will fit 100%, but it's a nice guide to have a look at. Most altcoins will not go past their euphoria high again. So that's against the BTC top. So I can't see most altcoins going past these tops in the next bull market. That, of course, is altcoin against their BTC value. So keep that in mind as well. If you're looking at the altcoin to pump and you think it's going to go really, really high, take a look at where that previous resistance was against its BTC value, because that's going to give you an idea of basically how far the altcoin could pump against its BTC, which could then help you with your USD profit targets. 5, disciplined traders will be the greatest winners, not investors at this stage. Traders, it's still a trader's market. As you can see, a lot of these altcoins are still breaking to new lows. And if you're looking to long-term hold these things, You don't know whether it's going to hold up at the next low or hold up at the next low or start to break down and find a new low altogether before you finally get that pump. Remember, we looked at this on Bitcoin and the strength that Bitcoin could be showing now, which is going to cause further pain and new lows for altcoins against their BTC value. You're starting to see altcoins break down. And as for the Bitcoin dominance, it's just getting ready to push higher. It's not there yet, so it's not confirmed, but it looks like it really wants to try this time and break through. So obviously we'll keep following that as well, which could and probably will put a lot of pressure on these altcoins. So as for the example, some of the major ones we've looked at, we've got complacency here for AVAX. You can see the breakdown start to form, and you go and label the anxiety, denial, panic. It's definitely happening, and you're going to see more and more of that before it gets quiet and depressing, and then people forget about it. Eventually, the bull market comes back. We'll get some higher prices, but probably not for long against their BTC values. You can see this happen with Cardano, ADA, complacency, or did we see a smaller complacency bounce here with that green bar before we got the dump, and then the denial sets in, the anxiety, and then the nothingness and the anger. So this is hitting new lows as well. It's broken past significant lows, which was May and June. So that's actually just May 2022, and then December 2022 as well. So it's hitting new lows against its BTC value and has unfortunately fallen back into the previous accumulation zone that it held before the pump. So that's a very, very weak signal there, and probably not going to get past these highs in the next cycle. So that's for ADA. So we can see for Matic against its US dollar value, looks like it's had complacency as well, broke under 50%, got rejected at 50%, and now trying to hold a shorter term 50%, possibly seeing new lows as well. But let's have a look at it against its BTC value, more importantly. You can see the complacency on the first bounce, so it's the green, another complacency bounce before another crash, and then another complacency bounce after it went on this pretty good run, but was unable to break its Bitcoin high. Now it sits at 50% and looking like it'll probably break down over the coming weeks or months. These are the key levels we need to keep an eye on, around that 2,000-ish Satoshi level, and then down to 1,700 Satoshis as well. So these are all those charts that you can see time and time again with that Wall Street cheat sheet, the same sort of pattern breaks down. It is not exactly the same, which is why I brought out each of these different examples. You can see here for ADA, even against the US dollar, it's got a completely different pattern as well. Matic against its Bitcoin has a different pattern as well, multiple complacencies, and then the breakdown. So really keep that in mind when it goes, when it comes forward for the next altcoin season. And for the last one here is Pepe USD. We can see that we've had a pretty significant, huge ass pump to these highs, and now we finally got that first dump. Now, the important part to note here is just how significant that dump is, because it's much, much greater than anything previously. So I brought up a few of the examples here, like Matic, because you can see there was a very significant dump on Matic, but it did just break to new all-time highs again. So this is the possibility for Pepe, but the returns are much, much smaller than the previous cycle. So we've got to keep that in mind, especially when we look forward to the complacency with something like a huge meme coin that we're seeing pump at the moment, like Pepe. So keep your 50% on the level. Next thing is the breakdown. So somewhere underneath these lows that were just set yesterday, keep an eye on that as well. And then look to the breakdowns once that happens. So you got the break up. Does it actually break and consolidate above like it just did previously? Break, consolidate above, or does it just touch like Matic did and then break underneath for further downside, where you have to start to look at this? So making some profits to the downside, like our members have been doing here. You got plenty of different cryptos here: Bitcoin, Render, Pepe, and huge gains here on the short side and the long side for Pepe. So this can all be done if you keep an eye on the charts using your swing indicators and any other plans that you got going. Now that is a huge video for Monday. I hope you guys found a ton of value from that, and maybe you made it to the end. Let me know in the comments down below. There is a lot to get through because altcoins are a special bunch. They can make you rich, or they can make you extremely poor after getting in at the wrong time. So hopefully this is not you saying that I wish I knew this before buying altcoins. I hope that this has helped out before you start buying altcoins. I'll see you guys at the next video. After hit that like and subscribe. Thanks again. Hope you had a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, peace out.